It's TK Friday, and it's another full edit. This time it's a night scene. I'm calling this one Sydney at Night. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. It's TK Friday. Today's image comes to us by David Tillett. This image was shot in Sydney, Australia. I'm calling this one Sydney at Night. Thank you, David, for the use of this image. By the way, this image was shot during an annual lights festival in Sydney. Now, you can go ahead and download the image and the PDF notes. I'll have Dropbox links in the description below this video. And these are just guidelines, the notes, because you can make this image whatever you want it to be, but you can use my notes as a guide, because we all have our own different interpretations of an image. And by the way, if you don't yet own the TK9 plugin for Photoshop, you can save 15% off the TK9 plugin for Photoshop, along with training videos. Use my promo code DK15. That gets you 15% off of everything. Not only are you saving money, but you're supporting the joy of editing with Dave Kelly when you use that promo code DK15. So thank you all for using my promo code. I really appreciate it. Well, let's get started. There's only 9 steps in this edit today, so it won't be too long. I started out with a linear profile for David's camera. He has an Olympus EM1 Mark II, so it's a linear profile. I basically click on auto, and then I just touch up the white and black point so I'm not clipping anywhere. I want my image to go into Photoshop relatively flat, and I've done some lens corrections as I always do. Remove chromatic aberrations, enable profile corrections. And then as far as detail, just some basic sharpening, no noise reduction, just a little bit of color noise reduction. And then on transforming this image, I just clicked vertical. And that basically, I'll shut this off so you can see. It just straightened it up a little bit. You see that? Just a slight little adjustment there. And I did do a crop. So let me click on the crop tool. And you can see I just cropped this image in a little bit, and that's it. And then I just right-click on the image, go to Edit in Photoshop 2024, but I'm already there. Now, I did duplicate the background layer and ran this into Topaz Photo AI because the ISO in this image was 1600, so there was a little bit of noise in there, which is typical on a night shot. So I ran Topaz Photo AI to remove noise and give it some slight sharpening. Now, when you download your image, it'll already have the noise reduction and the slight sharpening done to it. So I'm just going to click this button right here in the combo panel to flatten this image because I don't need both of these layers. Now, my first step is always balance and contrast. And as you know, if you watch my TK Friday videos, I like to use a Midtones 3 luminosity mask just to protect my shadows and highlights from clipping. Wasn't working out on this image because it was keeping me from getting those shadows darker than I wanted them to go. Because this is a night shot, and I do want some really darks in this image, okay? So I had to go about this a different way, and I'll show you what I've done. Hey, by the way, if you don't yet have your TK Gen Fill panel that works with Photoshop 2024, if you click on my affiliate link in the description below this video, it'll take you over to Tony Kepper's web store where you can pick up the free TK Gen Fill panel. I'll link my most recent video on the TK Gen Fill panel at the end of this video where I show you how you can get really great results when you want to add elements into an image. So check that out. I want to start off with a color grading tool for the balance and contrast. So we'll click this button on the multi-mask panel, and that gives us a color grading tool. Now, I'm working without any nets here. I'm not using a MIDS 3 luminosity mask, as I said, but I'm going to get some help with the TK9 combo or CX panel. They both have the same buttons. They're just laid out differently. I leave my CX panel open for actions. I'll be using a few actions here. And so what we're going to do is click this button right here. And this is if you hold your Option key down or Alt key down and hover over buttons, it'll tell you this is for live clipping. It lets you see if you're clipping. If you're clipping shadows, you'll see blue. If you're clipping highlights, you'll see red. I'm just going to X out of here. So this is a great help. And now I'm going back to this layer, color grading. And like I said, I normally put a MIDS 3 mask here to protect shadows and highlights from clipping. But now that I'm not using that for this night scene, I'll be using live clipping to help me. Now, I don't care if I clip the shadows, but I do not want to clip the highlights. The Mids 3 mask was keeping me from getting those shadows as dark as I wanted them to get, so I decided to not use it because it wasn't helping. Now this is a color grading tool, and this color wheel enables you to color grade, but you can also adjust your shadows, midtones, and highlights. In other words, you can adjust how light or dark they are. So I'm going to start with shadows, and I'm going to drag this to the left. And I took mine over to like a -22, like right there. Now you see the blue areas? Those are the areas that I'm clipping. Now if I shut off the live clipping layer by clicking the eye here, you can see. But see, I'm getting those really nice dark tones. And in a night scene, you definitely want those, okay? So I'll turn this back on. Now I'll move over to midtones. So I'll click on the midtone button. And what I'll do is open up the midtones. And I'll drag this to the right. And I took mine to like 29, like plus 29 right there. And just lighten up the midtones. Okay, and you can see I have no clipping here. If I go to highlights, no, I didn't make a highlight adjustment, but if I go to highlights and really pull this up, see the red coming in here. This just lets me know I'm clipping, but I'm not using highlights here, so I'm just going to right click this button and that'll reset that. Or you could right click on the slider here too, the circle on the slider, and that'll reset that as well. But anyway, here is my, well, let me shut off live clipping here for a sec. Here is my before, balance and contrast, and here's after. And already we're off to a really good start. Now, to get rid of this live clipping layer, all you need to do is come back to either the combo or CX panel and click live clipping again, and it gets rid of the live clipping layer. Pretty cool. We'll be using that live clipping again in a little bit. The next thing I want to do, you see this orb? I'm calling this an orb here. This is really cool, isn't it? I want to work on this next because I think this is kind of like the star of the show. So I'm going to take a little bit of artistic license here. But what I'm going to do is get an object selection tool. And if you'll notice right here, it says rectangle. If you click this drop down, you have lasso or rectangle. In this case, I'm just going to use the rectangle and draw a marquee around it. You can just go right here, draw like a little marquee around here, release your click of your mouse, and it selects that. Now, I'm going to add that to another color grading tool. So I'm going to click the plus right here. And you can see there's that mask right there. And if you click the double arrow, you can see there's that mask. Pretty cool, right? I want to adjust the lighting on it as well as give it some color grading. And I'll color grade the highlights, but I'll start out with the midtones. So what I'll do with the midtones is really darken those midtones up. Now, when you drag the slider, you don't see anything happen until you release it. And I took mine over to like a -38 right there. Okay, you see that? And then I went to highlights. And what I'll do here is open up those highlights a good bit. I mean, a good bit. I'm going to come up here to like 60. I mean, that's a lot, right? But it's going to help, at least for me. And if this isn't what you want, like I said, you don't want it that strong. But look at that. This is what I mean by an artistic license. I really want this orb to really have the viewer's eye go towards it. And now I'm going to color grade it. And I'm just going to click like right up around here, just to give it a little bit of a color grade. By the way, if you're worried if you like clipped anything here, you could click the live clipping button, click it once, and we can see there's no clipping here, and click it again, and that goes off. Now I need to work on this reflection to bring it more in line to the orb itself, so we're going to work on that next. So on this layer right here, all I'm going to do is get a white brush, and I want to go to 30% opacity. If you type your 3 key, now I have a nice soft edge brush at 0% hardness, and all I'm going to do is come here and just paint across here like this. With that nice feathered edge, I'm just coming the whole way down, and I may go in these areas here, make those a little bit darker, just like that. Maybe in here a little bit more, in here, just like that. So check it out. Here is the before, and here is the after. Okay, what's next? How about a soft pop action? Now, if your actions aren't open, you can click on the TK button on either the combo or CX panel. Mine's already open, and here's soft pop. So I'm just going to click soft pop, and look at that. Here is the before, and here's the after. Then I decided to try some edit blend if on it. So let's X out of the color grading tool, maybe to blend it in a little bit better. So let's click on this button right here to go to edit blend if. And I tried some different luminosity values like lights 1. Yeah, I didn't like that. got a little too light in the smoke. Then I tried like Midtones 3, and that was a little better. But then I tried Darks 1, and I like Darks 1. This orb stays pretty light. Here is the before, and here is the after, but I really like what this is doing on this night scene. I'm going to go ahead and X out of Edit Blend Diff. Nothing changes down here, just so I have my multi-mask panel. But next up, I want to work on the luminosity values of different colors of this image. And to do that, I'm going to use an action. So you can click your TK action button if your actions aren't open. Mine are open, so I'm going to click on Color Loom for color luminosity. And I'm going to work on the different colors here. Now, to help me out here so I don't do any clipping, I'm mainly worried about clipping highlights, not shadows. I'm going to click on my live clipping layer to help me, but I already know I have some clip shadows here, which I like, so I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about clipping highlights. So now let's go back to the color luminosity layer. So we'll click here to make it active, and I'm going to work on these colors here. We'll start with reds. Now, you know, I could lighten my reds or I could darken my reds. And I'm going to darken my reds, and I'm going to go pretty aggressive. Now, this is my artistic vision. You don't have to do this. You can leave yours anywhere you want or not touch them at all. It's totally up to you. And I took mine down to like around a minus 21, 22, 23. I think it was minus 23, but I'm going to go right here at like a minus 21. And now for the yellows. Now, I could try to darken the yellows. No, I don't like that. I definitely want to lighten the yellows, but this is where the live clipping is going to help. See, because when I go to the right here, you can see the clipping. Can you see the clipping starting to happen in the lights and down in here? I want to lighten them up, but I just want to go back to the clipping stops, and I think it's going to be like right about here. See, I have no clipping there now. I think for now I'm going to shut off the live clipping layer. It's still there. I can turn it back on to check. But let me go with greens here. I think I want to lighten up my greens. Yeah, you can see if I really drag that up where the greens are at. And I think right there looks good. I'll turn back on live clipping. Okay, I'm not clipping. I don't see any red anywhere. Now that the live clipping layer is off, any reds you see in here are actually in the image itself. And now next we're going to go to cyans. So let's see what we want to do with cyans. Do we want to lighten them? I usually drag it both ways and just see what I want to do. Okay, so you see the smoky areas, probably from some fireworks going off or whatever. You know, I don't want that too light, so I want to darken that down a little bit. So I'm going to take it down. I think they're right there. Now let's take a look at blues. Do we want to lighten up the blues? Well, no, I don't want to do that. I think I want to darken the blues. Now, you know, I can make them really dark, but I think right there. Just a slight darkening of blues. Now magentas. Let's drag this to the right. Okay, we can see there's some magentas in there. And I think what I'm going to do is darken them up to right there. Let me turn on my live clipping. Okay, I'm not clipping any highlights anywhere. And I think I've added a little bit more clipping into the shadows, which I don't believe is hurting anything. In fact, I think it's helping. But if I shut off the color luminosity layer, you can see there's a little less clipping there. And now when I turn it back on, there's a little bit more clipping. But again, it's not hurting it. Now I want to get rid of the live clipping layer by clicking this button on the combo or the CX panel. It'll shut off the live clipping layer. But now let's take a look. Here is before the color luminosity adjustment, and here is after. So again, before and after, and I like it. I think I'm getting a little bit more contrast out of this image. For this night scene, I think it's really helpful. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm noticing this smoke up here in the upper left-hand side. I think it's a little bit too light, so I think we can take that down, dim it down a little bit. Let's go with a curves adjustment layer, so click this button right here. I'm only using it for a blend mode, but first I want to put a black mask on it by clicking this button right here. That puts a black hide all mask, and now I'm going to use a multiply blend mode to darken, so I click the multiply, and you can see right there is the multiply blend mode. And now I want to use a zone mask, so I'm going to click this button right here and then just pick a tone in the smoke. And I think right here will be good. And it's that tone right there, so we'll click OK. And now what we can do is we can go ahead and tighten that up. I'm going to take this slider and drag it over to about here. Then what I want to do is take this slider and I'm just going to drag it to the left a little bit just to see if I can get a little better selection. And right there, I think I got my smoke pretty well right there. And now I'm going to output this to a black mask, white brush, painting through a selection right here. And I want to use an opacity of 30% for that with a very soft edge brush. And all I'm going to do is, start to paint over some of these smoky areas just to darken them up a little bit. Now, as I always say, if you lift your brush and then you paint again, you'll add more of the darkening effect. So just bear that in mind. Okay, I think that's good. So let's take a look. Here is the before and here's after. See how that darkens it down? Now, if you want too strong, you can always pull back in this opacity if you need to. And I think I'm just going to paint over this little area right here a couple times. And I think that's it. What I'd like to do sometimes is hold my Shift and Tab key down so we can isolate the image, and then we could just look it over. And if we look at this image, I'm looking now, this smoke over here is a little bit too light right in this area here, so I'd like to bring it down just to balance this out a little bit. And now I'll hold my Shift and Tab key down and I'll go back to the normal view. And now, right now, I still have a selection, so if you click this button on the multi-mask panel, this goes into edit selection, and you can see I'm not selecting that smoke that well, so I'm just going to X out of here. And what I want to do is make a new mask for this smoke. So what I'll do is click the zone mask button again. I'm still on the same layer. Click the zone mask button, and let's select a tone that represents the smoke, like right about here, and click OK. And now we can see it, and let's go ahead and tighten that up, and I'll move this over to maybe right about there. And now if I take this slider, I'm really trying to isolate that. So if I take this slider and if I drag this over to the right a little bit, see how I'm isolating that more, and I think maybe right about there. I don't think I need to lighten it any, and now I'll just load that as a selection. I'm on the same layer and I can work on the same layer mask. And with my white brush, make sure I have the white brush, and I want to be at, I'm still at 30%. I'm just going to paint over this like this a couple times in here. I'm not worried about this area up in here, and that's not bad at all because I'll be putting a vignette on here in a little bit, but I think that balances out better. Well, let's take a look at the before and after. Here is the before. See how that smoke is a lot lighter and your eyes are drawn to the smoke, and here is the after. Because I want the viewer to mainly go towards the center of the image with this really cool looking orb. Next, I want to work on the weaker colors here, just to pop a little bit more color. So to do that, I'm going to use a saturation vibrance mask. So we'll click this button right here, and let's look at Vibrance 1. This targets the weaker colors. There's Vibrance 1, that's too broad, 2, Vibrance 3, and here is Vibrance 4. And I think Vibrance 4 gets it for me. I'll put that to a hue saturation adjustment layer. And I'll start out by, right now we're on master, so I'm just going to click the drop down and I'll start with reds. Now, I tried all the different colors, but I ended up using just reds, yellows, and blues. So let me pull up the reds. I'll really pull up the reds so you can see that. But you see, it's not going to go too crazy because I have the Vibrance mask. And I don't want to go too much here, but I think I'm going to go right here, like a +10. And now let's go to yellows, and let's give those yellows a little bit more saturation. And I think I'm going to go up here to right there, +17. And now for blues, but you can try all these colors, and I did, but these are the ones I felt that really helped. And now for the blues, we're going to take that up to, and see, I'm getting a little bit of color in that smoke. There's some blue in that smoke. I don't want to go too crazy, but I think right here at a +20 just adds a little bit of a blue tint to that smoke. And now back to the drop down, click on this, and let's click on master, and let's just add a little bit of overall saturation to the entire image. Not much, I think, right there. Now here's our overall before, and here is after. So it's subtle, but it just adds a little extra pop in the color. And remember this Vibrance mask, and if you click the double arrow icon, you can see there's that Vibrance mask. The darker tones are getting little to no adjustment, and the lighter tones are getting certain amounts of adjustment. So remember, it's only targeting the weaker colors. Now let's click the double arrow icon, and now we're back to the image. A couple more things and we're done. I want to put a vignette on this image just to keep our viewer into the frame here. So we're going to come up to the TK actions. If yours aren't open, click the TK action button. So click on vignette, and I take the Gaussian blur just the way I get it here. Click OK. And now we default at 30%, but I'm going to go really crazy here. I'm going to take this opacity and pull this up to like 80%. But see how the edges get darker? And I don't care if I block up my blacks here. It's a night scene. I really don't care. But check this out. Here's my before and here's my after. Now, I did try to go to blend if, and I'll show you. Edit blend if. Click here. And usually I go with a no darks one. But it's lightening up the edges too much. So I decided not to use that. So I'll just uncheck gray here to shut blend if off. I'm just going to X out of here. But check it out. Here's my before and here is my after. And I think that really helps. I really like that. And the final thing I want to do is add a little bit of clarity to bring some detail out in the orb, because remember, I really want my viewer going here, and I think that'll really help. So open up your TK actions if they're not by clicking the TK action button, and you're going to find clarity up under this action set right up in here. So click on clarity, and what I'm going to do is take this radius, and I've experimented, and I ended up coming up to like 36, right around 36, somewhere right around in there, right there. Click OK. Now it's over the entire image. Here is the before, and here's the after. But what I can do here is grab my object selection tool. Now I'm still in that rectangle mode, and I'll just go like this and select the orb. And all we have to do to apply that to a layer mask is click this button right here on the combo. And you also find it on the CX panel. Click this, and now it's only on the orb. So here is the before, and here's the after. But see, now our eye really goes to that orb. And if it's too strong, you can pull back on the opacity. But I want to make sure you see it. And I think I do like it at full strength. But you could pull it back if you want to, or leave that step out. It's up to you, really. Okay, I just thought of something. And what we can do is, what if we wanted to add a little bit of that clarity into the reflections down here? So I put my brush at 20%. Just type your 2 key to get to 20%. Make sure you have a white brush. If you don't, just click this button right here. At 20%, nice big soft edge brush. I'm not going to lift the brush, but I'm just going to paint across here. This whole area right in here, and I'm just going to keep painting until I cover this whole reflected area down in here. Just like that. And I have not lifted the brush, so only 20% has gone down there. So check it out. Here is the before, and here's the after. So it just makes that water sparkle a little bit more, and I think that's cool. Let's do an overall before and after. So let's click this button on the combo or CX panel. We can see the before. So we started out here, and now we end up here. So I'm really happy with this result. And I do hope you give this one a try. But remember, use my notes as a guideline, and you make the image the way you want it to look for your vision. Another TK Friday comes to a close. I'm wishing everybody a great weekend. I'm wishing you happy editing. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial today. If you did, please give it a like, share it with your friends, and if you're not yet a subscriber to this channel, please subscribe, click that bell notification icon, and also click all notifications so you'll get notified every time I upload a new tutorial. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. I'll see you all right here next time, but until then, happy editing!